Welcome to Pathways Day. Welcome to Pathways, the gem of our curriculum. This is a program that has been developed to promote and develop student professional identity. But it also has a really strong underpinning of developing flexibility. And one of the things that I like to tell students during orientation when they start is how important it is to develop flexibility. In fact, there's a quote by Einstein, "The measure of intelligence is the ability to change." The measure of intelligence is the ability to change. And I think one of the things that I like to think about our graduates having is a combination of strength, which in our professional currency is really knowledge, technical skills, and the ability to make a human connection. So strength plus creativity and flexibility to me is really the ideal combination of a Michigan graduate. And this program, our Pathways program, really develops those underpinnings, building on our scientific foundation, encouraging creativity and flexibility. So to our Pathways students, I hope you enjoy this afternoon, really seeing the fruition of the work that you've done over the past 4 years. But I hope it's much more than just this celebration today. I hope you see it years from now, that this Pathways program and the project has really been transformational in your career. As Dean, I'm really proud of the work that you've done and the work that we're going to see today. And I'm also really thrilled that we have a cadre of our alumni here today to share in this celebration. So what I'd like to do is introduce to you our Board of Governors. And this is a board of alumni that are really quite interactive and form a link between our school and our alumni in general and the communities that they serve. This is a board that comes together twice a year and really functions in a very meaningful way for our community. So I'm going to introduce to you our board and ask them to stand as I introduce them and stay standing until I've introduced the entire board, and then we'll ask you to give them a nice round of applause. So first, our chair, Steve Dater, Matt Gietzen, Janet Cook, Andy Lewis, Sophia Masters, Michelle Velez, Tom Anderson, Brian Silla, Jory Lewis, Karen Berman, Lisa Wendling, Wes Schultz, Mike Baiman, Teresa Hull, and Jeff Halverson. Thank you so much for being with us today. I know none of you actually went through a formal Pathways program because the Pathways program is still somewhat new, but I hope you'll see and be able to enjoy and partake in the excitement of this program. We also have a few other distinguished alums that I would like to introduce, and I'm thrilled that we're able to join us today. We have Jay Berthume, who is one of our dental alums from Flint, Michigan. Olivia Kroom, who's the Chief Dental Officer for DentaQuest and a dental alum. And Susan and Robert Welke, dental hygiene and medical school grads from Illinois. Thank you for being with us. So, the paparazzi are here. Not to be confused with the paparazzi, the paparazzi are here. So I have a question for you all. What did the paparazzi, athletes, children in Kenya, the bacteria Treponema denticola, and the Boy Scouts have in common? Well, these are all going to be depicted this afternoon here as part of Pathways, and really highlight and demonstrate the depth, the breadth, the intensity, and the creativity of our students. So you're all in for a treat. This is a reflection of our students' work. These students who entered our school just a few years ago is the most highly acclaimed applicants to dental schools across the country. The same students who a few weeks from now will leave these doors as the most talented new dental healthcare providers in the country. And individuals who are ready to embrace different viewpoints and alternative strategies because of the strong scientific foundation that they received here, coupled with programs like our Pathways that have fostered their creativity and flexibility. Pathways, in fact, is the capstone of these amazing individuals that as faculty we're incredibly fortunate to have worked with for the past few years. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our director of our Pathways, who really is a living role model of this concept of strength being not only knowledge, technical skills, but also the creativity and flexibility. Professor DePeralta came to us after receiving her DMD from Tufts and then a PhD from the University of Düsseldorf in Germany, and then her first faculty role in the UK. And we attracted her to Michigan, where she is now known as not only the director of Pathways, but really dentist to the stars on our campus, as well as a rock star in academic innovation across our campus. So we are thankful that our Pathways has become even better from the work that Professor DePeralta has done for us. So congratulations to you, and thank you for all you do.
Welcome to Pathways Day. Happy Pathways Day, I say. What? Can you hear? Let's see. Let me see if I can do this one. Can hear that? Can you hear that now? No. No? Okay, we'll hold it up. You know what? We can do this one. So, can you hear me now?
No.
Turn that one off.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So, again, happy Pathways Day. I was just telling Dr. Swire, I wrote every Pathways Day, I have a squeegee board on my office door, and I always write Happy Pathways Day. And I wrote it this morning, and I thought, I feel like we just wrote this on our door, you know? So yeah, time is going by very quickly. It's always a really exciting celebration to have everybody together. Today, our theme is bringing theory to practice. The Pathways program is a unique avenue for our students to bring their personal ideas and their interests to educational and professional achievements. Thank you all for coming to celebrate with us the achievements of the class of 2019 in the Pathways program. Class of 2019, can you please stand so we can recognize you? Thank you. It is always a pleasure to launch the exciting events of Pathways Day. It enables us as a community of students, staff, faculty, and alumni to reflect on the many learning opportunities and life experiences this unique educational enrichment program has to offer. I would like to take this opportunity to also recognize the Pathways staff, as well as both the current and past faculty of the Pathways team for making this program possible. Can please the Pathways team, both past and present, please stand and also be recognized. Thank you, so exciting. In joining the team as program director in 2015, I was wholeheartedly committed to our program's purpose in helping our students define their interests and articulate their passions. Ultimately, This program provides opportunity for our students to enrich the development of their professional identities through reflective practice. As we reach a steady state of a restructured Pathways program coming in the spring-summer term, it has become clear to me that this very unique program at the University of Michigan is so much more than what we initially set out for it to be. The Pathways program is a curricular framework offering our students celebration of their individualism. This provides an opportunity to collaborate rather than conform in a professional community where moving learning forward with defined focus can ultimately better our patient care. Thank you to everyone in the Pathways community for letting this program rise beyond our own expectations. And to join in the celebration today, we have the Red Shoe Company. The Red Shoe Company is a collaborator with Dr. Elizabeth Carl in looking at the effects of music therapy on student assessment performance. They are here today to play for our Pathways community. Let's welcome them. know about everybody else, I feel lighter. Wow, that was amazing. Thank you again. That was the name of that group of songs was Tight Sweater by Mark Mellitz?
Yep, nailed it.
Yeah. And I just wanted to thank the individual people in your group. Wesley Horn-Petrie, thank you, Leslie. Colin McCall, and Annie Jane. Thank you again. Thank you for making us a special event. So great. I also want to thank Tegan Farran, who is part of the Red Shoe Company and was really instrumental in making this possible today. So she couldn't be here today, but can you send our thanks to her as well? Thank you so much. Really great. As many of you know, Dr. Alonso Carrasco-Labra, the director of the ADA Center for Evidence-Based Dentistry, was planned to be our keynote speaker today, but due to unforeseen circumstances, he could not travel to Ann Arbor to join us in this event. We are hoping that he'll be able to join us perhaps next year in the 7th annual Pathways Day, and we're really, really hoping to be able to have him share this day with us. We will now turn directly to the student presentations for the Pathways Director's Choice Awards specifically. These awards are a special recognition of a project within each of the themed pathways, research, leadership, and healthcare delivery. And the winners will be introduced by the pathway director of each of those pathways. And I'm going to hand over to Dr. Chiego, who's going to start us off with the research pathway.
Thank you. Jeff, are you here? Come on up. Research is ephemeral like that. You never know. The first thing I want to do is thank you guys, the class of 2000 and what year is this? 19. For being our students and choosing the prestigious University of Michigan School of Dentistry. It's always been a great place. We've always had a fantastic research program. And I'm hoping that your experience was equally fantastic. So Jeff made a decision to come from California because of the climate and the trout fishing. He was a cellular molecular biology out in California, University of California, and maintained that excitement when he came to the school. And when he came to the school, as you guys all know in the class, that you had a choice of 3 pathways at the time: leadership, healthcare delivery, and research. And many of you had done research undergraduate. Many of the students still do research undergraduate. And 4 years, and not just, and some excellent work. So Jeff decided that he wanted to work with Dr. Rogerio Castillo, and did for his tenure here. And with Dr. Castillo and I, and we talked a lot, and we talked to all the mentors. And Dr. Castillo had nothing but praise for this young man, soon to be doctor, or maybe doctor now. And so I chose him. So he's also won a very prestigious award, the American Association for Dental Research Fellowship, which gives him some monies to do research and to travel. And he has to present at the annual meeting of the AADR, the IADR. So Jeff is going to talk to you a lot, 15 minutes. about some really exciting stuff that you guys might remember from your D1 year. So enjoy. Further ado, thank you, Jeff, and congratulations.
Thanks for the kind words, Dr. Chiego. And I thought it was 10 minutes, but. All right, no presenter notes. I'm going live. Yep. Okay. Alrighty, guys. I'm Jeff. I'm in your class, most of you. And I chose the research pathway. I chose the nerdy pathway. And my research topic is extracellular histones and their role in the progression of periodontal disease. We'll go into that later, but how I got into research, like Dr. Chiego mentioned, in undergrad, like many of you, I did a lot of research. I spent a year doing stem cell research at UCI, and that's where I found my passion for research. Can you guys hear me? I'm sorry. I see like this. Yeah. Better? Okay. So, I came into Michigan really wanting to do research. I mean, we're the best school to do research. We have produced a lot of quality work, so I knew that I wanted to do something with research. But the problem is there's too many research going on here. There's way too many labs, and I don't know, it was hard as an incoming D1 to see, to know what lab is a good lab to go into. And I'm sure all the labs are great, but after talking to a lot of my upperclassmen, I've been recommended many times over to check out Dr. Rogerio Castillo's lab. And I was like, all right, let's give it a shot. So I met with him, we sat down for 5 minutes, and I was sold. So this is our lab. Yeah, this is our lab. We're a really close-knit group. It's really fun. You can tell we're having a lot of fun here. Dr. C, we'll call him Dr. C from here on because Castillo is a mouthful. Dr. C makes some amazing Brazilian barbecue. This is him making, I think it's called picanha. It's like this awesome cut of steak that's just marinated with salt. You guys should definitely try it if you haven't. But yeah, we're really close, and we always, it's always a collaborative work within his lab. I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for the help of Dr. C and all of my lab mates. So getting into my research, I wanted to find something really simple. I wanted to look at something that would be applicable for us during our daily practice. So taking a look at these two pictures, I was wondering, why does this happen? So if you take a look, picture on the left, on the right, on the left.
The red button is the laser.
This one. Patient presents here with significant subgingival calculus. I don't know if you guys can see it with this lighting. I didn't really consider that, but imagine that there's a ton of calculus here, because there is from up here, you can tell. And there's an impacted third molar, and there's all these conditions. The patient's also a smoker. And there's all these conditions that you suspect would be attributed to periodontal disease. And yet, what you see is you don't see any loss of alveolar bone. You see there's actually a healthy lamina dura. Conversely, this patient over here, if I told you that this patient was on a 3-month recall interval, really on top of oral hygiene, gets her cleanings done, on the dot, and yet we see generalized severe bone loss with mobility. Kind of begs the question, why does this happen, right? So, going back to our classes, you know that periodontal disease can be controlled. There are controllable factors. There's things you can do to help with that. Brushing, flossing, overall practicing good oral hygiene, and not smoking. Yeah, not smoking. I mean, these are controllable factors that we can do to prevent periodontal disease. We also know that there's other factors, such as genetics. There's some studies studying on certain genes, VRD, IL-6, IL-10. These are genes that have been suspected to increase susceptibility with periodontal disease in certain populations. However, results really show that there's nothing conclusive so far. There's a trend, but we can't say anything concretely. We also look at microflora. That's a really popular topic nowadays. Taking a look at red, orange complex bacteria, T. denticola, Forsythias, bacteria like that. And we see that populations with greater numbers of those bacteria do tend to have more periodontal disease. And while this is promising, there's still a random element to this. That really doesn't tell us the whole picture why a person would be like the two different cases that we witnessed in the previous slide. So going back to my project, this is what I wanted to find out. I want to see what is this missing piece that's attributing to what we see in clinic, and how can we help these patients? So this is the title of my project: Extracellular Histones and Their Role in the Progression of Periodontal Disease. It's a mouthful, but we'll break it down, okay? So what are histones? I'm actually asking a question. Anybody? All right, get out your clickers. This is so histones. Does anybody care to venture to answer this question? Doctor? I'm sorry? There you go. Okay. The typical Kareem. So yeah, what Kareem read from Wikipedia is correct. Histones are proteins, essentially proteins that help condense DNA. Believe it or not, this image took me like 2 hours to make. I'm not very artistic. And here you can see that histones are 8 proteins, and I only show 4 here, or 6, but it's 8. It's there, and and it basically DNA wraps around it, and it helps condense the DNA.
I didn't include the copy.
So here's another image of how proteins interact with DNA. So in the bottom right here, you see DNA, right, base pairs. So in the human genome, there's actually 3 million base pairs. When you stretch that up, that's like 6 feet. And I'm like 5'8", maybe 6 feet with my hair, not even. But so if I were to stretch all the DNA from a single cell and place it all the way to the top, it would be like this tall. And histones, what they do is DNA wraps around these histones to be packaged into a manageable volume. So this is extremely important, because without it, we wouldn't be able to cram all that in, and complexity in life would be impossible. We'd be like bacteria. So histones are extremely important, and we've known that for years. But recently, did you guys know that histones also serve an additional role outside of the cell? So this picture is a process called mitosis, in which a neutrophil basically explodes, undergoes a type of programmed cell death, explodes, and spills out its DNA contents with its histones outside of the environment. And these histones are actually antibacterial. They help clear away bacteria. They're cationic, which is a positively charged, and they really disrupt the bacterial cell wall. So the process of mitosis, this one took me another 2 hours, by the way. The process of mitosis can occur in 2 different steps. There's a non-lytic and a lytic form, but essentially it does the same thing. It spills its DNA and associated histones into the extracellular environment, and it's meant for clearing bacteria. So in 2009, there was this Nature publication examining sepsis, and what they did was these researchers injected mice with histones, just the histones, because they wanted to see what part of mitosis is responsible for the effects we're seeing. So they injected mice with histones, and they saw that when they did so, they basically got sepsis. They saw increased infiltration of neutrophils, vacuolated endothelial cells, and basically the effects of sepsis by just injecting a particular subunit of histones, histone H3. So of course, this makes us wonder, does this have a role in periodontal disease? And I suspect it does. Because if you take a look, when we learn in perio class, what is the first cell type, white blood cell type that infiltrates the gingival sulcus? Neutrophils, right? And when they do, isn't it possible that they undergo netosis to clear away the bacteria that's in the area? And what does that do to the gingival sulcus environment? Like, what effects does that cause? We suspect that this may be something that plays a big role in the progression of periodontal disease. So my hypothesis for this is that extracellular citrullonated histone H3. So citrullination is it's a post-translational modification. It's just basically it's essentially histone H3 that's been modified outside the cell. Can cause cellular damage and activates inflammatory pathways in keratinized oral epithelial cells. So the keratinized oral epithelial cells is what forms the barrier in your gingival sulcus that protects it from the outside environment, and breakdown of that causes periodontal disease. So a little bit of chronology on how I'm going to how I'm going to answer this question is I'm going to divide it into two stages. The first one, I'm going to be exposing cultured oral epithelial cells with varying concentrations of citrullonated histone H3 and stains for markers of cell damage and inflammation. So how do we do that? So what I do is I take these oral epithelial cells. They're human oral epithelial cells, and they culture really easily, surprisingly. And I subject them basically to a wide variety of concentration of extracellular histones. These concentrations I found through dose curves and also through past literature. So there's a negative control where I just culture in its media, and then I increase the concentrations as I go up in samples. So this is what I found. Okay, so this assay is called immunofluorescence, and essentially what it is we stain for cells. So everything you see in blue is a nucleus. And besides red blood cells, all cells contain a nucleus. So it's safe to say that everything in blue is associated with a cell. And what we do is we stain for not only the cell, we stain the cells blue, but we also stain for a specific biomarker that tells us what we need to know. So in this case, I'm staining for a biomarker called CHEK2. CHEK2 basically appears whenever there's DNA damage. And you can see that from my data, the lower concentrations doesn't cause much DNA damage, but as I go up higher, you start seeing these little red marks. Each of these red marks, these foci, are instances of DNA damage, a double-stranded break in the DNA, and that's the cause of damage. And this is that stains red. So I didn't really like that antibody because it was kind of blurry to me. So I tried something else, H2AX. Really similar mechanism. It stains whenever cells are damaged. So you can see in the earlier pictures that in lower concentrations, these are just cells. They don't appear to be very damaged. But as you go up, you start seeing more and more portions of the cells becoming staining red. So this is evident that at higher concentrations, there's more DNA damage when the cells are exposed to citrullonated histone H3. Next, I wanted to see if citrullonated histone H3 causes any inflammatory processes, if it activates any inflammatory processes. So to do this, I examined a biomarker called NF-kappa B, and that's kind of like a protein that's a convergence point of all inflammatory pathways. And it tells us whether or not a cell is undergoing these inflammatory processes. This data is not the best looking data, as you can tell. It's kind of all over the place. And I've tried this many times, but I mean, that is research, and I have nothing to hide. So next step. So now that we did all the bench work and looked at DNA damage, we're gonna apply this to people. So the next stage of my research, I isolate tissue samples from healthy and diseased patients and determine if there's a difference that we see. This proved to be a lot harder than the first stage, because anytime you work with humans, anytime you work with people, you have to get an IRB, you have to get all these approval, a lot of red tape and paperwork, but we were able to do it, just not in the time that we wanted to though. So I'm just going to go over a little bit of the process and how we do this. So this machine is used to harvest gingival crevicular fluid. So you can imagine, gingival crevicular fluid is a fluid in the sulcus between your teeth and your gums. There's like not many, right? there's like, the volume is really small. So what we do is, how we harvest is we use these strips that soak, then we insert it in the gingival curricular, into the gingival sulcus, and we let it soak up the gingival curricular fluid. Afterwards, we store that in like ice, and then in addition, we also harvest some tissue samples. So we do a small little gingivectomy. Looks a little painful. It's okay. I did it to myself actually, because we ran out of, we needed samples. So in the name of science, I did it to myself. It wasn't too bad. You know, these cells actually grow really quickly. I grow them. You know, I've been growing them, and they grow too fast. So I wasn't concerned at all that I wouldn't get this back. I got it back really quickly. And then we take it, we process it, and we fix it in formaldehyde. Up until this point, we're almost done with our data collection and GCF collection. Once we get all the different representative samples of between healthy patients, gingivitis patients, and periodontitis patients, we're going to start running our assays, because you can imagine our samples are really small, and we only have like really one shot at doing this. So we want to make sure we have enough to be able to get a meaningful data. So it's pending right now, but I promise it's coming. So in conclusion, extracellular citrullinated histone H3 is shown to cause DNA damage in human oral epithelial cells in vitro. However, it's uncertain that inflammatory pathways are activated at all. But moving forward, we can check other markers for this. And pending data from our GCF and tissue samples, citrullinated histone H3 may prove to be a useful biomarker for disease progression in chronic periodontitis. So I envision this, if this works out, I envision this to be a new test that we can use. A patient goes into your office, you have this simple biomarker that you can test for. If you see high levels of citrullinated histone H3, now you can, in the back of your mind, you know that this patient may be a higher risk for getting periodontal disease. And then you may be more aggressive with their periodontal treatment. So some acknowledgements. I want to acknowledge the Pathways program. This wouldn't have been possible without it. My PI, my wonderful lab that's over here too. Charlene, and just this institution. This are my references. Do you guys have any questions? Oh, you were just stretching? Yes.
Really nice project. I like how you brought the science into the clinical relevancy. And so along those lines, you said that the data from the tissue samples is still pending, including your home sample. But the question is, well, I guess it's two-part. What do you expect to see between the healthy gingivitis and periodontitis groups? And then two, were the samples collected from sites within the same patient, so individuals who may have a healthy site and a site of inflammation, or were they all separate individuals? That makes more sense.
Great question. So that was the hard part about it. So we had to not only get a representative site, we also had to get representative patients for the collection process. We collaborated with Grad Perio, got a lot of the disease patient that way. It was actually extremely hard to get healthy patients. It was actually extremely hard to get healthy patients to be on board, to be able to harvest, tissue, as you can imagine. But so we do look at sites that seem to be more inflamed, maybe sites that have gingivitis. However, that's dependent on each individual, and some people may not even have any sites that are inflamed. But we do note that during our collection protocol.
What do you expect to see?
Oh yeah, so what I expect to see, hopefully, it'd be great if I saw that in patients with periodontitis, patients with gingivitis, or patients who seem to be progressing towards periodontitis have an increase of citrullinated histone H3. That would make it a very valuable biomarker that we can potentially use in the future when we're screening for patients. When they walk into our door and we don't know anything about this patient, all we know is that they have a higher level of this, which makes them more susceptible. Hopefully that answers your question. Any more questions?
I got it. Thanks, Jeff, that was beautiful. Both the global and right down to the biochemistry, fantastic. The man in the purple back there who asked the question, Dr. Kegler, was the original director of the research pathway, so we need to give him a hand for being just a beginning. And now I'll turn the microphone over to Dr. Hemrick, the younger.
Bold statement. I'm Dr. John Hammerink. Wanted to thank everybody for coming today, Dean McCauley, all the board of directors, all the previous pathways directors and folks that helped out in the program. And we're going to move on to healthcare delivery pathway. And our main focus with this pathway is healthcare delivery. So a lot of our students are going out doing surveys and projects in the community for underserved communities and peoples, to educating them about dentistry and oral health care and things of that regard. And our winners this year are Lauren Mamina. And Lauren is both Michiganders here. Lauren's from Grand Rapids, born and raised, and she received her bachelor's from Grand Valley in 2015 with a major in biomedical sciences. Upon graduation, she plans to move to Royal Oak with her fiance and her dog to practice general dentistry. And Jessie Larson was born in Ludington, and she graduated in 2015 from Michigan State University with a degree in human biology. After graduation, she's going to move back to Ludington and work with her mother in general dentistry practice. And let's bring up the winners who are going to talk about therapy dogs and their usefulness and benefits in practice.
Thank you, Dr. Hamrick. And thanks, Jeff. I didn't know this was supposed to be funny, so ours isn't. All right, like Dr. Hamrick said, I'm Jessie and this is Lauren. We did a survey asking adult dental patients' attitudes towards therapy dogs in the dental setting. We would like to thank Dr. Engelhardt, the survey queen, for helping us out with that. We would also like to thank our inspiration for this project, our beautiful dogs. On the left is my dog Lady, and on the right is Lauren's dog Tipsy, and they inspired us to look into this topic. Alrighty, a little background information. The American Kennel Club defines a therapy dog as a dog who provides comfort to people in a school, medical, or disaster relief setting. They're even utilized here at the University of Michigan Hospital and University Health Services twice a week for students and patients. Dental anxiety prevents many patients each year from going to the dentist. We all know that. Dental fear is ranked 4th in the most common fears list and has a prevalence rate of 25% in the population. It is for this reason they are often used in the medical setting, and it makes us wonder, why aren't they used in the dental setting as often? Next one. Alrighty, here were our objectives. We wanted to look at 1, adult patients interested in visiting an office with a therapy dog, 2, their concerns about it, and 3, what are the factors that makes them interested? Our study was IRB approved, and we administered 329 surveys to patients in the dental waiting rooms here at the school. The survey was completely anonymous, and the patients were ages 18 to 25, and they got a free parking voucher for completing the survey. We asked them questions about their personal and their dental background, if they had any previous exposure to dogs as pets or family pets, anything like that, and if they had ever heard of what therapy dogs were. We then inquired to them, what do you think about it? We hypothesized that many patients, particularly patients who suffered from dental anxiety, would be really interested in this, because why not? Dogs are awesome. We love them. We've got them. A lot of us do in our class. So we wanted to know. Our first objective explored what their interest was. So what we did was we asked 5 questions about this topic with a ranking from 1 to 5, 1 being not at all to 5 being very much. We asked, how would you like to see a dentist with a therapy dog? About 57%, 57% thought that they would like to see a office with a therapy dog, 20% absolutely did not, and the rest were right in the middle. We asked if they would want the dental school to have a therapy dog, and 60% did say they would like that. But interestingly enough, 35% said that they would not request one specifically during their appointment. We also asked patients if they thought that a therapy dog would relieve anxiety for patients who suffered from dental fear, and 65% felt that it would be beneficial, and 12% felt that it did not. So overall, positive attitudes, some kind of gray areas, but overall it was good.
All right, so our second objective was to explore the concerns about a therapy dog in a dental office. There we go. So here's our second table. We asked a couple questions regarding this. First, we asked if a therapy dog would increase their fear going to the dentist, and we actually found that only about 13% of the patients felt that it would. But overall, the overwhelming majority felt that 75% would not increase their fear, which was a good finding. Also, we asked about their concerns about germs with therapy dogs being in a dental practice. About 19% of our respondents were concerned about this, but overall, 65% were not concerned. So our third objective that we explored were factors that might be associated with the desire to visit an office with the therapy dog, and we did find that there was some correlation with background characteristics of our respondents. So our third table is a little confusing when we look at it, but we want you to pay attention to a few things here. First, we want you to see where the stars are. These stars essentially will indicate that there is a significant relationship. For example, you can see between age and whether you would like to visit a dental office with a therapy dog, they have stars, so there was a significant relationship there. The second thing we want to pay attention to, is if there's a minus. This would indicate that there is a negative relationship. We found that, for example, older the patients were, the less likely they wanted a therapy dog in the school, at the dental school, or in a dental office. Also, the older the patients were, they thought that the less they felt that the therapy dog would ease their stress. The second factor we were interested in exploring was if a patient's past experiences with a dog would impact their attitudes towards having therapy dogs in a dental practice. Here in the sum score, we found that if a patient currently or previously had a dog, they felt more positive and were more likely to visit a dentist with a therapy dog. Additionally, they were more likely to think a therapy dog would ease their stress, and they were less concerned about germs. Lastly, we found that the higher the dental anxiety scores were, the more likely these patients were to request a therapy dog at their dental appointment. So overall, females were more positive than males regarding their attitudes with therapy dogs. Although the over responses to therapy dogs were not consistently positive, we did mention, for example, that the finding with the older the patients were, the less likely they felt that therapy dogs would ease their stresses in dental practices. We found this actually very interesting because we find that most therapy dogs are utilized in nursing and retirement homes with the elderly populations, so that was surprising. And then patients with previous negative dental experiences and dental fear were more likely to request a therapy dog, which we think could be something that can be implemented in future practices. We do know that, that would be the next slide, sorry. We feel that future research needs to explore the actual implementation of therapy dogs in dental offices and to evaluate their stresses before and after treatment. So overall, while we found not all patients have a positive attitude, the respondents who have owned a dog now or in the past were very positive about it. The main concern was, of course, that there's increased stress or concern for germs, which could potentially be controlled with proper sanitary measures and only having a therapy dog present on specific days of the week. And that way you can avoid patients with allergies or a fear of dogs. Interesting enough, UNC's dental program actually implemented a therapy dog in their dental clinics, and they're the first one in the country to do so.
And that's in their pediatric clinic.
Pediatric clinic, apparently, yeah. All right. So we would just like to thank the Pathways program first and foremost for the financial and administrative support, Dr. Engelhardt as our mentor, and all the patients who responded to our survey. Do we have any questions?
Yeah. So this is a great topic. But
thank you.
I would definitely say that before we do this, we would need to test out the therapy dog in the dean's office.
We can make that happen.
Months
Yeah. That was part of our goal, was to try and get therapy dogs in the waiting rooms, but it was a little more complicated than we thought it would be.
But-
Yes? Oh, sorry.
Well, no, I actually have a question.
Oh, go
So-
for it.
It's more than just a comment.
Okay.
I'm actually surprised that there didn't come up more about allergies. You know, you mentioned it
Yeah.
briefly at the end, but how would you balance that out if you had, you know, some individuals who want the dogs and other people who say they have allergies to the dogs?
So we were looking into like private practices mainly and most of them actually have hypoallergenic therapy dogs, so it's not as much of a concern. A lot of times they also only have the dogs there certain days of the week, so if like people or parents, whatever, are really concerned about it, they just know they can't schedule an appointment on that day. But there's ways to control that, but a lot of times it is a hypoallergenic dog. Yep.
So the question is, I didn't see it, so you have to refresh my memory. Did you survey any of the patients who may have had a poor experience with a dog in their life, and what their response would be to having a dog in the clinic or in the clinic reception area?
No, we did not ask that question.
That would be a good
That would
one.
be
Question to
something,
ask.
yeah, that's a good question to ask,
Because it would be
absolutely.
disruptive to a large waiting
Yeah.
reception area like we have here. Now, I have a dog and I love my dog.
Yeah.
I would take him, bring him here tomorrow
Oh,
morning
yeah.
if we're gonna do that.
I think one thing we found too with our survey, it was just a generic question, what would you think about a therapy dog? And there's a lot of different ways it can be used. It could be just in the waiting room, like a lot of offices, they have a dog laying right on a patient's lap. There's a bunch of different ways to implement this program.
Any more questions? Yeah.
Hi, have you considered liability if the dog bites someone, the patient or someone else in the office?
That's a really good question. So I don't know if anyone could hear in the front here. She asked if there's a liability with having the dog. I think that's part of the reason why that the dogs need to be certified. The dogs that go through the training to be therapy dogs, where they wear the vests. I know there's some controversy with emotional support dogs, but we won't get into that. The therapy dogs go through very rigorous training. I believe it's like 6 to 8 week courses with their handler. So I think preferably if you had the therapy dog, it's a lot of the time the practice owner's dog or the patient's dog, where it's, you know, allowed to be in these public areas. So if it's not a service dog, that would definitely pose liability risks. So very good question. Does that answer?
Yeah.
Okay. Any more? No? Okay.
Hi, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very nice. It was very nice to hear from both Director Choice Awards from the 2 different pathways. I'm Dr. Nikki Swire. I'm the Leadership Pathway Director, and my co-director, Dr. Mark Pinsky, is here as well. We were tasked with choosing the Director's Choice Award for the Leadership Pathway, and it was a truly difficult task indeed, as our 2019 leadership cohort is an amazing group of students. However, we did come up with one award recipient, Alexander Shore. He embodies the skill, the passion, the determination of all of our leadership students, and we're very happy to have him represent the Leadership Pathway cohort of 2019. He comes to us from the Michigan State University Lyman Briggs College of Residential Sciences with a major in human biology and a minor in bioethics. So he will speak to us today about dentistry, a profession or an occupation. Please welcome Alex.
I don't have dogs, so it's going to be hard to follow up. Anyways, can you hear me, everybody? All right. Once again, thanks for Dr. Swire and Dr. Pinsky for picking this project. It's truly an honor to be up here in front of you all today presenting. And to my fellow presenters, nice work, congratulations. Fellow classmates, congratulations, we're almost there. As Dr. Swire stated, this is the project from the Leadership Pathway, and it deals a lot with legislative affairs and regulatory action. So, we first defined what is a profession versus what is an occupation. Our definition of an occupation for today's purpose is the regular activity performed by a person to earn a salary in which no code of conduct governs the job and is not regulated by statute. Now, how does that differ from a profession? Fortunately, My content experts help me define a profession as a disciplined group of individuals who adhere to ethical standards, dentists. This group positions itself as possessing a special knowledge and skills and a widely recognized body of learning derived from research, education, and training at a high level, and is recognized by the public as such. And a profession is also prepared to apply this knowledge and exercise these skills in the interest of others, our patients. Now, how can a profession be broken down into its components? The first is a specific set of knowledge, your training. The second is a specific set of language. Ask someone to go through your treatment notes and see if they can guess it. The third is self-regulation, and this is the focus of today. So, peer review is where we're going to jump into this. And members within each profession are responsible for individually and independently upholding the ethical standards set forth by your profession. The realm of healthcare is governed by a select group of professionals within it. They're elected, say on boards. It's called the peer review committee or peer review council. The peer review system is governed by a code of principles, the 8A Code of Ethics, which we'll get into. They're specific to each healthcare discipline. And if a given professional fails to uphold these principles and standards, they are subject to appear before a member of their group of peers and may be subject to disciplinary action. So, as you all know, here the 8A Code of Ethics is set forth by the American Dental Association. This is for completion. I won't go into each one in particular, but those are the 5 governing principles that we dictate our care around. And how is it regulated here in Michigan? So in Michigan, the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs deal with dentistry and all professions, healthcare-wise. So after you attain your license, you have to renew your license every 3 years. And as a part of the 3-year licensing requirements, there are certain things you have to accomplish. Now, each dentist signs a legally binding document stating that they've completed these requirements. You have basic and advanced care life support, which we've already started to do. 60 hours of continuing education courses every 3 years, which will occur after you leave. 1 3-hour pain management course each 3 years, and a board-approved human trafficking course 1 time, and an opioid management course effective 2018. At each 3-year cycle, a select group of dentists are randomly and privately audited by the state. Some dentists go through multiple audits. Some may never go through it. Now, legally speaking, LARA also handles legal affairs here at the state. If a complaint is made for unethical behavior, or any behavior that a patient, a provider, sees unfit for you, you're subject to appear in front of a peer review committee. Now, if you're a member of the MDA, you can appear in front of your local committee. If you're not, you go straight to the state board. Now, when a decision is made, and usually when a bad decision is made, the state publicly publishes the record as disciplinary action report, which is found front copy of the MDA monthly magazine. They're all online, so on and so forth, which was the inspiration for this project. We gathered them up, and we saw what the trends were. So, when a dentist is audited and is found that they lied about licensure requirements, are these transgressions unethical, and are these transgressions illegal? Now, our hypothesis here with our study was that the majority of what we're going to find is related to a lapse in ethics, simply put. The purpose of the study was just a longitudinal observational study. We categorized them all over 10 years, from 2016 to 2007, and we simply categorized them. So like I said, the initial step was that we went on the LARA website and got all of the documents. We figured out how this was going to happen for them. Now, we used both licensure types of dentists and registered dental hygienists as our population of WHO. Now, all the data that was collected was categorized. And how was it categorized? By license number, date, basis, action, location. We further analyzed it by frequency type. And if we wanted to see if there's any location type, but that was going to take a little too much work. So, moving on to our results, what we found. We found that over the 10-year span, dentists were very, very subject to have the transgressions of negligence and failure to meet CE requirements over the 10-year period. Negligence came in around 53%, and CE came in around 20% for dentists. Now, a lot of this stuff needs to be defined. What is a negligent dentist? A negligent dentist implies that a dentist failed to do something in a competent and caring manner. Now, that is not to say that the dentist is incompetent, which simply implies that the dentist does not have a requisite skill set to perform such actions. And here are results. So just further quantified here, we have blue as negligence, and orange is CE. So each year, the height of the graph is the amount of violations per year. And then blue was the most frequent citation for dentists, negligence. Now, moving on to registered dental hygienists over the 10-year span, at 72% of the 222 violations against registered dental hygienists, it was a failure to meet continuing education requirements. Now, what does this mean? This doesn't mean that they didn't do it necessarily. It just means that they failed to prove that they had completed this at their 3-year licensure requirement. And the same thing goes for dentists. It's not that they didn't do it, it's that they failed to prove. Or they were taking courses that were not board certified. And there is our graph for registered dental hygienists, an overwhelming majority being CE, orange. All right, give you a second to look at that. Pretty overwhelming, pretty colors. So what is the role of a dentist or dental hygienist in the community? It's something that's drilled into our head here quite often, at least through our education. We serve a specific and certain role in the community, a civic duty to do good and to be truthful. And when you find yourself in an ethical lapse or a situation, you're directly encroaching on the ADA Code of Ethics, which govern our profession, which is regulated by the people in this room. So the principles of beneficence and veracity are directly in violation. You can make the argument that the others are, but for the majority, negligence and CE, we're going to focus on these two. Now, the ethically fraudulent dentist. If you find one, what's to say you're not going to find more? What other transgression is the given dentist fraudulently holding? Is the dentist committing an illegal act by practicing, knowingly committing these transgressions? And how should the regulatory process ensure that all dentists are held accountable in an equal manner and not just some? Illegal practice now. If it can be applied that a dentist is in direct violation of the Code of Ethics and that uphold the standard of this profession, then he or she is acting unethically. The case can also be argued that a dentist that is negligent should not be licensed. And if your license must be active to practice, are you practicing illegally? Now, it's kind of been made clear, I think, but there's potentially a flawed process. The data suggests there might be a potential lapse in the regulatory affairs process. The cited transgressions only affect the dentists that underwent this process. Like I said before, not everyone goes through this. Some may never go through it. And contrary to this point, how do we make sure everyone goes through it? We're all looking after each other as part of peer review. So we have speculations as a result. How many dentists that haven't been audited have previously violated these requirements? How many active licensed dentists are currently in violations of these requirements that have never gone through something like this? And how many, as a result, are practicing illegally and unethically? So, our conclusions. Over a 10-year period, we saw that both registered dental hygienists and dentists had some similarities, being CE. The major finding being CE between both, but for dentists specifically, negligence. And here's a little bit of a breakdown on what I said earlier, just to give you kind of some numbers. That's not a pretty picture, but. So there's 339 dentists over the 10-year period, and we have a rough estimate there's about 5,000 to 6,000 licensed active, so this is less than 5%. So we might be harping on something medium. And then 222 dental hygienists over the course of the 10-year period. Now, in summary, going back to our initial definitions here, a profession is a disciplined group of individuals who adhere to ethical standards. A profession is also prepared to apply this knowledge and exercise these skills in the interests of others. This strongly suggests that the violations are a result of either not understanding or rejecting professional responsibility. The current regulations are insufficient to ensure that continuing education requirements are met. This lapse in ethics potentially suggests legal implications for the field of dentistry, and that the findings from this study may imply that a new process might be necessary for enforcing regulations in the state of Michigan to make sure all dentists are equally monitored, as opposed to just some. So, acknowledgements. Once again, I had a few content experts help me. Dr. Hamrick was an author. Dr. Coling was a professional content expert. Thank you to the Pathways Department again for allowing us to kind of chase this down. My CSCAR consultant helped me make those graphs because I cannot do that without him. And Dr. Swire and Dr. Pinsky, thanks again for selecting this topic for presentation. It's been an honor to stand up here in front of you today and talk about it. And if you have any questions, now's the time.
Just me?
Dr. Hamrick.
Did they have any categorization of the negligence, or is it just kind of negligence? I mean, did they get into it at all?
So I had Dr. Coling dig deeper on that one for me, and they.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so Dr. Hamrick, not Dr. Howard Hamrick, John Hamrick, asked if there was a definition to negligence, and we spent a lot of time looking through this because the state board is very, very discreet on how they publish these things. They don't want to give away too much. So negligence versus incompetence was the reason why I went over that, and that was our best working definition we could come up with through people who've sat on this board before, professional content experts. Like I said, negligence has not something to do with the skill set, but the care that was provided. The skill set is more the incompetent part. AKA, if you're popping 10 root canals in someone and they all fail, maybe you shouldn't be doing a root canal, you're incompetent in that procedure. Negligence would be more of like a failure to provide the caring aspect, misdiagnosing or something.
The line seems to be blurred between ethical breach, legal, and breach of the duty. Can you see if you can differentiate a breach in the ethical protocol and breach of the duty? Who makes the decision whether or not it's ethical, breach of the duty, illegal, and when are the disciplinary consequences of each?
I think I might have to defer this one to my Pathways mentors here. They are the content experts.
So the ADA and the MDA have a code of
Yeah, hold on. I'll bring the mic.
The code of ethics is defined by a board of individuals that meets and decides how the practice, whatever it may be, could be dentistry, could be medicine, should be practiced in an ethical manner. And the 5 characteristics that were put on that slide gives you an ethical. So you can practice unethically, you can practice immorally, but when you practice illegally, and I think that's the point that he's making here, are you really practicing legally if you're practicing unethically and immorally? The question is, you're violating, you know you're violating the patient care. So when you're looking at the 3 aspects of practice, you're looking at the moral, the ethical, and moral can be somewhat vague at times depending on one's background and one's bringing up and one's cultural situation in life. But ethically, the code of ethics is defined by the MDA and the ADA. And we all have read it, and when these folks graduate, they're going to do this announcement at graduation that they're going to uphold. You're all going to say you're going to uphold ethics, and that's basically the practice mode we ought to engage in. Once you get to law and peer review, now you're asking some very serious questions about whether you are violating the state statutes, which define how patients are to be cared for. So there's 3 levels that you can practice at. You just don't want to fall into the. And then the point I think that you make very clearly here, and at least I'm familiar with it because I've read it a couple times, I'm sorry if everyone else didn't get it, is that once you slide on that slippery slope downward from the ethical standards, it doesn't get too much harder to keep sliding, and consequently, some of us that have been on peer review boards have had to monitor people as the direction of the state board.
I know, but when you and I graduated, it was ethically a problem if we had billboards. Okay?
size
Now,
of
the
the order.
original sin, how did we evolve to the point in which that's no longer a problem?
Well, those things became a living document. The ethics code is a living document. There's always a meeting
And
at
who
the
makes-
ADA level
And
with,
the ADA makes that.
well, the ADA and MDA, and then the Board of Dentistry basically uses those guidelines. So those are living documents because, you know, TV ads and everything else that you have today, that was never allowed.
Anything else? Any other questions? All right.
Got it.
Thank you.
So can I ask the award winners, the dean, and mentors of the award winners to stay back for pictures? Everybody else, please go ahead and go out and enjoy the poster session.